Hey folks, this is John Miller, Executive Editor with WB News. We would like to welcome you to Ask the Experts, featuring John Halderman of Beacon Wealth Management. John is the founder, owner, and certified wealth strategist at Beacon Wealth Management. You can find out more at bwmwb.com. And now live from the studios of the Exponent Telegram in Clarksburg, West Virginia, let's Ask the Expert. Welcome to Ask the Expert. Today we are joined by John Halterman of Beacon Wealth Management. Welcome, John.
Thank you, John. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I tell you what, kind of like the rest of the country, I took a collective sigh after the election, John. And, you know, with Donald Trump's pending return to the White House, we've seen some pretty strong economic indicators. The stock market responded well. You know, what does the election of Donald Trump and really just the end of the election cycle mean for those looking to jumpstart or fine-tune their retirement portfolio?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because a few weeks ago we had this conversation, and you said, you know, who would be favored for the election? I said, you know, it doesn't matter about the presidency. It matters more about policy. And the biggest thing that, you know, people, they got to have money in their pocket. Because if you don't have money in your pocket, you don't have money to spend. And two things that really impact that is inflation and taxation. And I think that that's the very first two things we got to look at is, you know, what are we going to do about those two problems? And, you know, and the big thing is, you know, we were getting ready to get a tax hike. People don't realize this. The previous time when Trump lowered the taxes, he lowered taxes for all tax brackets, but they were set to expire at the end of 10 years. Well, guess what? That is at the end of 2025. And so if Trump wasn't reelected, those tax brackets were going to automatically go up. And of course, if taxes go up, well, that's money out of people's pocket. And unfortunately, if you don't have money to spend, you definitely can't buy goods, which ultimately drive the economy. And so that's the first thing that I would say to people is I feel confident in saying that there's going to be a continuation, that they're going to drop or keep those tax brackets just like they are, which is a big deal. They're also going to drop taxes on corporations because, you know, people are always saying, well, they're doing that for the rich. No, that's really for everybody because when you lower taxes on that, it allows consumers to buy more. I mean, I don't know if you've looked, but in the last few years, I mean, like I went to Halloween trick-or-treating. Those little Reese cups, you know, what used to be normal, great Reese cups are now these mini Reese cups. And, you know, and that's the issue is that we're not getting as much bang for the buck. And so when corporations can lower those taxes, well, they can do better things for people. And, you know, and people will sometimes say, well, that's not true. But it absolutely has been proven to be true.
You know, one of the things that in talking about, you know, the prices and tax cuts, you know, West Virginia also additional income tax cuts coming. Mm-hmm. How much has that helped West Virginians out?
Oh, it's big. I mean, absolutely big. I mean, think about this. For every dollar that you don't have to pay in taxes, where does that money go? It goes back in your pocket. And so when you have net money in your pocket, that's money you can spend. And obviously, the more money you can spend, that's just going to ultimately drive the economy. You know, and interest rates, we're already seeing that. You know, interest rates because of inflation was crazy. And now you're starting to see those come back down. And what's that going to do? That's going to drive people borrowing again. Because I don't know about you, but, you know, we had to think twice. You know, when interest rates are 6, 7, 8% compared to 2 and 3%, you had to think twice. You know, do I need that new car? Do I need that addition to my house? Do I need a bigger home? Do I need a vacation home? That's all about spending. And so bringing those interest rates down allows people to think, okay, now I'm comfortable. I have confidence. And that's another thing, just having confidence. I mean, this last week had nothing to do with actual earnings. It was confidence that people had because now they believe there's a brighter future in terms of the economic progress that we're going to make in the country. And that in itself is a big, big deal.
You know, let's tie this package all up here with a nice ribbon and bow, if you would. So, you know, we've got tax cuts on the state level. Yep. We've got tax cuts currently in place and likely to be extended, I would say, based on, you know, it looks like the Republicans will have total control. So, and then you've got, you know, so interest rates are coming down. You've got this perfect storm, so to speak, in a good way, because you've got people with more money going into their pockets.
Well,
so what do they have to do to prepare themselves for better retirement?
Well, and before I mention that, regulation is going to change. There's going to be some industries that are going to benefit from that big time. The energy business. You heard him say it. Drill, baby, drill, okay? That's going to happen. That's going to be jobs, okay? That's going to happen. The financial industry, highly, highly regulated. And I'm not saying there shouldn't be rules, but that's going to get leaner. And they factor that into it. And then also, we're going to probably have more national defense, and so the aerospace industry is going to be a big thing. And so people, that work in those industries are going to have more security in terms of their future. And the biggest thing I think people have to do now is, now that they have their confidence back, they got to go back to planning. Because I think one of the things that people stop doing is that when your money's tight, they said, hey, look, I couldn't put as much in my 401k. I couldn't take advantage of a Roth IRA. I couldn't do several things. And I think that's the biggest thing is now that we see all this stuff, as you said, now people have to sit down and say, okay, now that the future is going to be changing, what am I going to do? Am I going to be able to save more? Am I going to be able to make sure my business can expand now? Those are all things that I think people now have to do. So when you say get ready, that's the first step that they have to do is sit down with whether it's their advisors, their accountants, or whomever, and figure out exactly where they are, where they're wanting to go, and what's the new game plan. Because without a game plan, none of it matters because you can't wing it. I mean, that's the one thing I'll tell you. When it comes to financial success, winging it does not work.
We've talked in the past, John, many times about the importance of sitting down with someone like yourself who has experience, who can see the big picture, but also spend time with the individual in the so-called little picture of that person. How vital is that to success?
Oh, it's 100% vital. I mean, I tell people this all the time. I mean, not to be funny, most people need somebody because this is not what you do every day. And in fairness, how many people do you know is actually taking a class to do something with their money after they earn it? And so that's where the problem is. There's an epidemic coming when it comes to retirement simply because people lack planning right now. And so I always say, those who have success, it's not accidental. It's very, very deliberate because they didn't do anything genius other than the fact that they did some planning. And because they did that in itself is a big, big differentiator.
John, wrap things up for us. So, I mean, blue skies are here again, as they say. The sun is shining, life goes on. But there's a lot of positive things heading into 2025 when
absolutely.
It comes to finances.
Absolutely. I think that, this is something that from a confidence standpoint, that's what it's people's confidence is soaring. And don't get me wrong. Obviously, there's some people who are very disappointed, and I get that. Anytime you have an election that doesn't go in your favor, there's going to be some pessimists. But I think what we have to be thinking about is instead of thinking about what is not, we got to be thinking about what could be. Because too many times we spend energy on saying, well, they could be this, they could be that. Right now, as you've already said, we've got a lot of things working in our favor, and you got to take advantage of it. Because if you don't take advantage of it, then when would you capitalize on opportunity?
Again, we're here with John Halterman of Beacon Wealth Management on Ask the Expert. John, excellent advice. Any parting words?
You know what? Parting words to me is, as we said earlier, sit down and get a plan. Get a strategy in place. Because if you try to wing it, you're not going to succeed. But if you have a plan in place, your probabilities are going to increase tremendously.
Thanks for joining us on Ask the Expert. Until the next time.